Alright, so in section 3.4, we're going to be dealing with equations of lines, and hopefully this will also be a good review for you from Algebra 1 last year. But remember, we've got three forms of linear equations. So you have standard form, and we have slope-intercept form, and we have point-slope form. So we've got all three of these that we need to be able to work with and use. So remember, typically when we're writing equations of lines, we're going to start with point-slope form, but sometimes we'll use the other forms. So with this equation, you should notice this is given to you in point-slope form. So from point-slope form, we need to know how to get to slope-intercept form and standard form. So remember, when we want to be in slope-intercept form, we need y on one side of the equation by itself. So what I'm going to do is simplify this equation and basically solve for y. So we'll have y minus 5 equals 2x minus 12. And then I will add 5 so that y is on a side by itself. So we're going to have y equals 2x minus 7. So that is now in slope-intercept form. And then to get to standard form, remember that's where we have ax plus by equals c. And if you remember from last year, a, b, and c cannot be fractions, and a must be positive. So we know that the variable x has the coefficient a in front of it. So we know this 2 needs to stay positive. So let's say I go ahead and I subtract 2x to the other side. So I'll have negative 2x plus y equals negative 7. In order to turn this a into a positive number, we're going to need to multiply both sides of the equation by negative 1. Then we would have positive 2x minus y equals positive 7. So this would be standard form, this is slope-intercept form, and this is point-slope form. So when it's in slope-intercept form, remember this is y equals mx plus b. So this tells us our slope, and this tells us our y-intercept. When we're in standard form, we can't look at it and really tell much of anything. You have to do a little bit of work to figure anything out. When it's in point-slope form, we know this is the slope, and then we know if we take this number and this number, those would be the point that you would be given. So just remember those things. We're going to work some with all these different forms. So what we're going to go through is how to write the equation. I'm expecting you to know how to graph these. What's the easiest way to graph? For most of you, the easiest way to graph is going to be where you have the equation written in slope-intercept form, and then you use the point, the y-intercept, and the slope, and just count and graph it. So if we're going to write the equation of the line with slope 7 and y-intercept 2/3, we're going to write these in slope-intercept form. So to write in slope-intercept form, I need to know the slope, and I need to know the y-intercept. So I know the slope is 7, I know the y-intercept is 2/3, so then I know my equation is y equals 7x plus 2/3. And that is all that we would do. So to write the equation of the line with the slope negative 3/4 that contains negative 2,5, well, I've got a point and I have the slope, so we're going to start in point-slope form. So remember that's y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So this is x, this is y. So we're going to have y minus 5 equals, and we know the slope is negative 3/4, times x, and then minus negative 2, which we know is really positive 2. So on the left side, we still have y minus 5. I'm going to distribute the negative 3/4 and get negative 3/4 x. And then remember, minus a negative is really adding a positive 2. So negative 3/4 times positive 2 is negative 6/4. Now if we want to, we can go ahead and take negative 6/4 and simplify it. So I'm going to simplify negative 6/4. So I've got y minus 5 equals negative 3/4 x minus 3/2. So remember, we want to write these in slope-intercept form, so I need y by itself, so I'm going to add 5 to both sides. So then we've got y equals negative 3/4 x, and then negative 3/2 plus 5. Well, if I rewrite 5 as a fraction with the denominator of 2, that would be 10/2. So negative 3 plus 10/2 would be positive 7 over 2. So for this particular equation that has a y-intercept of 3/2 and a slope of negative 3/4, if we graph this by hand, it's not going to be an easy graph to graph by hand because you have fractions, but you would still be able to estimate and do the best you could to show that graph. That would be much easier to see in a calculator because it would be exact. So to write the equation of a line that contains the 2 points. So what we always need to do first is figure out the slope. For all the forms, we always need to know the slope. Well, I guess not necessarily standard form, you could use other things, but point slope and slope intercept form, we need to know the slope. So find the slope between these 2 points. And you should get negative 4 over negative 2, which is 2. So we know the slope. So then you're going to use the slope, and then you pick a point to write the equation. Well, if I look at these 2 points, I've got 0, 3, and negative 2, negative 1. Well, what's special about 0, 3? Hopefully you recognize that this is the y-intercept. So since it's the y-intercept, we've got the slope, we've got the y-intercept, and we can go ahead and write our equation y equals 2x plus 3. Now, if you forgot that that's the y-intercept and you went through, you'd have to use point slope form and go through the whole process like we did here, which is still fine. You'll get the same answer, it just will take you a little more time. So keep that in mind when you're working through these. Pay attention to what you're given and see how you can apply it to the problems. All right, problem B. We've got to find the slope first. Find the slope. So you should find that it's negative 8 over 16, which is negative 1/2. So if we look at both of these points, neither of them are the y-intercept. So we're going to need to just pick one and write the equation. So we're going to use point slope form. So we're going to have y minus, and I'm going to use this first point, so x and y. So y minus 4 equals negative 1/2 times x minus negative 7. So then we'll work this out. So we got y minus 4 equals negative 1/2 x, and then minus 7/2. And I need to get y by itself, so I'm going to add 4. So we've got y equals negative 1/2 x, negative 7/2 plus 4. 4 can be written as a fraction with the denominator of 2 as 8 over 2. So this would be plus 1/2. So that would be your equation. So you know this is your slope, negative 1/2. Your y-intercept is positive 1/2. All right. Problem C. Find the slope. So you should get 0 over 7 or 0 over negative 7, which is 0. So let's think about what we talked about in section 3.3. If the slope is 0, what kind of line is that? And you should remember that would be a horizontal line. Well, if it's a horizontal line, then the equation should be y equals some number. Well, if I look at these points, both of them have a y value of 7. So if I was to graph this on a coordinate plane, so this is just a little sketch, then I would have negative 2, 7, and then positive 5, 7. So if I connect those points, that is a terrible sketch, but it's a sketch, then that would be the line. So if I think about the equation of that line, we should know that would be y equals 7. So horizontal lines will always be y equals some number, and the number will be the y coordinate of the ordered pairs if you're given ordered pairs. All right, find the slope for D. And you should get 2 over 0, which tells us the slope is undefined. So let's think about this. If I plotted both of these points, so here's our sketch of the coordinate plane. So I've got negative 3, 6, and negative 3, 8. Then we're going to have a vertical line like we knew we should have based on the slope. So if I have the vertical line, we know that the equation is going to be x equals some number. Well, if I think x would equal negative 3, which is what the x-coordinate of both ordered pairs is, so that would be the equation. So vertical lines you cannot write in slope-intercept form. You'll just have to write them as x equals a number, and they're just a special case of equations. Alright, write the equation of a line with a slope of -2 and x-intercept of -5. So if I have a slope of -2, that tells me, okay, m equals -2. An x-intercept of -5. Well, what does that mean? Well, what would that be as an ordered pair? Well, hopefully you know that would be -5, 0. And that's 0. So we can take that point in slope and plug it into point slope form. So we're going to have y minus -5 equals -2 times x minus 0. So y minus -5 would be y plus 5 equals -2x. And then minus 0, we wouldn't have anything. Okay, well if we look at how this is set up, what's wrong with this? What's wrong with the way we plug this in? So I want you to figure out what's wrong, and I want you to solve this correctly and write the equation correctly. So I want to know what this equation should be after you correct our mistake. Alright, number 5, write the equation of a line with the x-intercept 7 and y-intercept of 3. I think this should not be one word. That should be with the, so you might want to correct that. So x-intercept of 7 and y-intercept of -3. So if the x-intercept is 7, we know that's the ordered pair 7, 0. And the y-intercept of -3 is 0, -3. So what we need to figure out to start is at least the slope. So if we calculate the slope, we should get -3 over -7, which is 3/7. Well, I also need the y-intercept, which we're given right here, so then we already know what the y-intercept is, so our equation would be y equals 3/7 x minus 3. So you're going to have to use what you're given and figure out the easiest way to find the equations. Some of you are going to do more work, and that's fine. Some of you will do less work, and that's fine, as long as your method is correct and you're able to get the right equations and you can show how you got your answer. Alright, write the equation of a line that's perpendicular to 3x minus 2y equals 4 and contains 8, -1. So what's the point of this equation? Why did they give this to us? Well, if it has to be perpendicular to it, what did we talk about the slopes of perpendicular lines being? Well, we know that they are opposite reciprocals. So what we need to do is figure out the slope of this line. And then once we know that, we can find the slope perpendicular to it and use this point and the slope to write our new equation. So if I want to find the slope of this, I'm going to need to solve for y, so that I will be in slope-intercept form so that I can determine the slope. So I'm solving for y, so I'm going to subtract 3x. And then we're going to divide by -2. Which will give us y equals 3/2 x minus 2. So from this, we know that this slope is 3/2. Well, if I want the perpendicular slope, it would be -2 over 3. So we're going to take that point and that slope and write the equation. So I want you to do that and have your final answer in slope-intercept form. And I also want you to work out B and C and bring those into class with you, and we will talk about them as well. So remember, you got to find the slope parallel to that equation, and then use that point and the slope to find the equation. Now this one, I want you to think about the easiest way to find that slope, and then you've got this point, and so you can use the slope, and perpendicular slope is what you'll need for your new equation, and then write the equation based on that point and the slope. So, what are the 3 forms of equations of lines? I want you to list those 3. Look back at all of this, see if you have any questions, and bring them into class tomorrow, and we will talk about them. I will see you then.